Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Not too much to talk about on the baseball field for the Atlanta Braves that's worth talking about that we really need to talk about outside of Grant Holmes. Shout out Grant Holmes. First start as a major leaguer. Strikes out 7 of the first guys he retired. It pulls a Houdini in the second inning. I mean, do we have another starter? You want to talk about starting pitching depth? The Braves have starting pitching depth, and I'll throw Grant Holmes in there because he looked like a guy who could start a game in a pinch if needed. Now, not a playoff game, but in a pinch, better than Bryce Elder, right? And Bryce Elder will be on the mound tonight. But despite the Braves losing on the field, they won off the field. Most importantly, Ronaldo Lopez avoids anything serious, might be able to make his next start. That is obviously huge news. And then they go out and finally make a trade after the game is done. Almost midnight last night. They're bringing the band back together. And Jorge Soler, who was kind of on my radar, but at the same time, I was like, are the Giants going to sell? And, I feel like we get so caught up in 2021 that every trade deadline, I'm like Jorge Soler, Jock Peterson, and it just seems like maybe going back to the well isn't the answer. This time they do go back to the well, and let's be real. Jorge Soler hasn't been a world beater. He was an all-star last year, but he's having a decent season, hitting 240, 12 homers, 750 OPS. That's so much better than what the Braves have. It's night and day. Whether he comes here and looks like an all-star the second half like he did last time in 2021 or gives you that production, it's such a significant improvement.
I don't understand how Braves fans are even upset about this and then continue. Listen, does more work need to be done? Do we need more outfielders? Yes. Those things can be absolutely true, but acting like this isn't a significant step forward for the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos, you're an idiot. Are you not watching what we're trotting out there? Ramon Laureano does not belong on the roster. This effectively pushes him or Eddie Rosario off the roster if more moves come down the pike. I mean, I don't understand how anybody is upset about this whatsoever. It wasn't underwhelming whatsoever. He's exactly what the Braves need. As of late, I wrote an article about it. Go check it out on sportstalkatl.com. He's been very good as of lately. He's around an 880 OPS since the month of June or since June 1st. I don't quite, and more than anything, honestly, it gives the Braves a reliable leadoff guy. His 11-point-something walk rate is the highest on the Atlanta Braves by a large margin. We're 27th as a team in terms of walk rate. That's pathetic. This guy not only gives us, and his defense is great, no, but he's as good as Eddie Rosario, I would argue. And if he's a little worse in the field than Eddie Rosario, his bat certainly makes up for it. Every single argument against it or just being a pessimistic Braves fan, I don't understand. There isn't a bad thing about this deal that you have to complain about. He's under contract for next year, which is an underrated aspect that is already addressed that was going to have to be addressed this offseason. Already addressed.
Were there people not happy with it?
I have seen multiple people, and it's more about the overarching theme of the trade deadline where they're like, oh, great, Alex Anthopoulos is done. He's not done. This was a huge part, but it's not the only part.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, and whenever you're watching this, I mean, we're recording this, hours before.
As of right now, this is all we have.
As of right now, it's just Jorge Soler, but I still expect some sort of middle infield piece. I know people have talked about Whit Merrifield playing a little more second base after he heals up from the cut that he has on his finger. I'm not exactly thrilled by that. I know it's an option, but and maybe, I still think they're going to bring in some sort of middle infield depth, and I don't know where Whit Merrifield will stand after that happens, if it happens. Outfield, I still expect him to bring in another outfielder. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those patented trade where Alex Anthopoulos kind of took a little gamble, was willing to take on the cash from the Giants. They basically gave him up in a salary dump. They gave up no prospects, a prospect at the very back end of their back 30 that was drafted in 2023 that has a 704 OPS. In high A Rome. So and he plays third base, a position that's locked up by Austin Riley. So they really gave up absolutely nothing. They were just willing to take on the contract of Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson, who's owed $6 million next season. I'm interested to see. I know Luke Jackson also brings back those 2021 World Series vibes. I'm interested to see what they do with Luke Jackson. I mean, to me, I don't see where he has a place on this roster in the bullpen. He hasn't pitched well, 5.40 ERA. Now, maybe the Braves think he can come to Atlanta and kind of reminiscent those Jesse Chavez. But if I'm looking at the guy he might be replacing, it probably is Jesse Chavez. And I know he didn't have a great outing yesterday. He gets the loss after Grant Holmes pitched so great. But I just have a hard time believing they're going to replace Jesse Chavez with Luke Jackson. Maybe they do, but I think they're really just eating that salary for the Giants. This is all just eating salary. I mean, Jorge Soler is owed $16 million next year, and in 2026. Clearly, the Giants didn't want to have to pay that. The Braves are willing to pay that. They know they need an outfielder now and in the future. I think it works out for them. He comes to a place where he's had success. I mean, the best success of his career has been in Atlanta, and we're desperate for outfield hope, not just now, but in the future as well. I mean, there's nothing to me about this deal. And if you're complaining about money, why does
your money?
Why
does anybody gives a damn?
Why does anybody care about money? Now, if there is like a secondary trade, right, because we're getting up into like the third tier of the luxury tax and moving our first round pick. Now, if you go out there and trade AJ Minter or something like that, or Raisel Iglesias, then we're talking.
I don't even know why that's being brought up.
To me, taking away from a strength of this team doesn't even make sense.
That's such a. I don't even understand.
It's because of the money, though. That's the only reason why it's being brought up.
But like, let's live in reality here that the Braves aren't going to actively make themselves worse to save a little bit of money. Like, not at this stage of the season, not at this stage of Alex Anthopoulos' career with the Atlanta Braves. Like, that's not I have no idea. And it's like respectable people who cover the Braves that are suggesting a salary dump. Now, a salary dump of somebody like David Fletcher. He's earning a lot of money to, just mess around in the minor leagues. I could see that. I could see another salary dump, but not our closer. That's the biggest. That's a joke. That's a joke.
I mean, I don't know what kind of deal would look like it. Like Raisel Iglesias, obviously, you saw what I forget his name, but for the Angels brought back. So, I mean, you go trade Raisel Iglesias right now. Like, you are getting some studs in return. Like, he's under contract for next season as well. He's one of the best closers in baseball. I have no interest in trading him, but I am saying, like, you're not just salary dumping him. You are getting a stud in return. And the same thing happens with AJ Minter. And it could be pieces that just cost less, that kind of fill similar roles. Maybe you get a second baseman. I don't know how exactly it would work.
If I squinted, I could maybe see AJ Minter, but not Raisel Iglesias.
I mean, just the way that it would work, it wouldn't just be a salary dump is what I'm saying. Like, you're going to be getting, it would almost be more like a three-way trade. Like, you're upgrading in other areas and dumping that salary in the process or something like that, because you're going to get guys for AJ Minter and Raisel Iglesias. They're two of the best relievers in baseball. And you've seen this is a seller's market. So, if you want to capitalize on a seller's market, there's no better time to do it. And you even mentioned it. There are guys that are going to be buyers and sellers. Could the Braves be one of those teams? Listen, to me, you keep the strengths. The strengths of your team right now is the Atlanta Braves, is your bullpen and is your starting pitching and this entire pitching staff, which has been the best in baseball from top to bottom. And to me, you don't change it. Like, there's no reason to change it. Now, I understand we have other needs. I understand there's salary things that GMs have to worry about. But to me, I don't think you change the number one strength.
But also, this is just a giant assumption from these people that, Liberty Media has given Alex Anthopoulos financial restrictions that he is now over. Like, that's just, people are pulling that out of their butt. In no way, shape, or form has Alex Anthopoulos, Liberty Media, or any Braves beat writer given a concrete number of like, okay, now we're in that third tier, or now we have to go back. Like, that is just an assumption that the Braves aren't spending money. And again, I'm confused. What is happening that like makes you think we're not willing to either one, shed other salary, not our closer, when we're still clearly going for it, especially with Ronaldo Lopez news, especially with the Max Fried news and the Jorge Soler acquisition. Like, and people are still putting, like, respectable people, and like, you could talk yourself into it, but then again, you're just basing it off an assumption that the Braves are already over a threshold that they're not supposed to be. That's not the case. Like,
and then it's an assumption that's been false year after year, because the Braves have gone higher and higher and higher and higher past what a lot of these same people that talk about this past what anyone could have wildly imagined. I mean, the Braves, 5-10 years ago would have never spent money like this. Now they are. And you can thank the battery for that. Like, that's clearly had a significant impact in how the Braves spend and you guys showing up to games. So as I always say, pat yourselves on the back for the Braves spending money, but they've spent more and more money, and there's never been an inkling out of Alex Anthopoulos' mouth. He's always said they give me as much as I need. And this, to me, I'm going to agree.
You don't make this move if you're going to go then and trade Raisel.
Unless there's just some deal on the table that makes a ton of sense. I mean, and I don't know what it looks like because it has to be wildly creative, right? Like we were talking about, guys that fill other needs, guys that fill.
It would have to be an everyday outfielder.
Like we'd have to see plenty of things get switched around. So instead of imagining all these crazy things, which are, in the realm of possibilities, I'd say let's just imagine that this trade is what it is. And it's just us getting outfield help and willing to take on that salary because the Braves are printing money at the Battery and have shown year after year they're willing to spend more money. And I don't think that's slowing down. I mean, they make more money year after year. I mean, they are quite literally printing money. There's a reason why payroll continues to go up. And I don't imagine that changing. And having these guys, we always talk about it, locked into these contracts. I know some of them haven't lived up to it, but most of them are fairly team friendly. And it allows you to be more aggressive on a year-to-year basis because you have those guys locked in to that number for years and years to come.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I don't know why anybody's suggesting the Braves are cutting payroll. It's not going to happen. They just took on $20-something million to acquire little old Jared Kelenic. If that didn't tell you we were ready to spend money, I don't know what did. We're certainly not going to make a trade like this for Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson in a glorified salary dump, which is also confusing from the Giants side to go on and do a salary dump of our own. It wouldn't be a salary dump. I get what you're saying, but it doesn't make any sense.
And the Giants apparently want to remain competitive. So they clearly just weren't happy with Jorge Soler, but one man's trash, another man's treasure.